Talk about my company Green Oil UK Limited. I was briefly on Dragon's Den once, and my company makes the world's greenest range of bicycle maintenance fluids. So here they are. You're all aware of the COP21 conference going on now about climate change to reduce countries' emissions, and Blue Planet has also raised awareness about plastic pollution. Well, when I started just over 10 years ago, none of this was really on anyone's agenda. Well, it was on some people's agenda, but now it's gone mainstream, which is great, and it's really nice to have been part of one of the cogs, part of that, to help make that happen in a small way. So my company's won awards for being eco-friendly, which is great. And that's the Bromley Business Award, and maybe I'm just showing off here, but it's good to have some success. And I'm lucky to be working in an industry that I enjoy. I love riding bikes, and obviously we're making bicycle lubricants, bike cleaner, Degreaser. And I actually clean my own bike and I actually ride. Some people in some industries, they're making cars and they're not into cars, or they're in a plant shop and they don't have any plants in their own home. There are a lot of people like that, but I'm lucky to be able to be in an industry that I like and enjoy. So, like a lot of businesses, Green Oil started with a problem. There were no eco-friendly lubricants on the market. I was riding my bike through a river, and I felt bad about my chain oil going into the water. And I said to my friend, I know this is bad, I need to get an eco-friendly lubricant. And he said, oh, it's only a small bit. And I thought, well, it is a small bit, but I'll have a look. And there was nothing really on the market which was suitable. There's actually a small video I want to show you, which is a nice sort of introduction to how it all began. Hello and welcome to Green Oil. Starting from a log cabin in Kent, Green Oil emerged by making the world's first totally green chain lube. The aim was to compete with petrochemical brands in terms of their performance, but without their environmental impact. All those nasty black and orange symbols you see. Like all good small companies, the story started with an idea. One day, whilst riding my bike through the River Quaggy, I noticed my oily chain cutting through the water. I thought about the environmental impact of this, and it made me realise that every fluid you use on your bike ends up in the environment, and most of these fluids contain Teflon, petrochemicals and other toxic nasties. However, looking for a green chain lube, I found that all the lubes out there are petrochemical based, and some were even so toxic they had this dead fish and tree logo on the bottom. So I decided to develop my own. After researching the matter at university and trying many different ideas, I finally came up with the perfect formula and created the original Green Oil. So nearly 12 months after my experience in the river, and armed with a secret formula, I decided to turn Green Oil into a business. My ethos would be to make products that competed with other performance lubes, but without using PTFE or any other damaging chemicals. Since the success of the original Green Oil, the ethos has been used to develop other products to maintain your bike. The range has also got greener, using 100% recycled plastic for our 100ml bottles. The line of products now includes a super dry chain wax, a gel to degrease your chain, as well as the world's first FSC certified bike product, the Green Oil Bicycle Brush. As well as approval from environmentalists, Green Oil has received widespread industry recognition, winning awards and praise from the bike world and beyond. Join the revolution. So, pollution is a big issue. One of the things about running a small business, you get opportunities to speak, and occasionally people do find what you're doing interesting. And I was featured in my log cabin, which you saw there. That was in my parents' back garden where I started the company. And the BBC got in touch and they did a little feature. So I had 5 minutes of fame for a week on BBC Breakfast News, which is great. And like a lot of companies, it did start in a small cabin. Things are a little bit different now because I meet people starting businesses and they're looking to get investment and they've not even created a prototype. And that's kind of a good thing. You also have Kickstarter as well, so you can come up with a product concept and then put it on Kickstarter. And I actually know a friend of mine, he got £1.5 million on Kickstarter with a headphone idea called Cocoon. And they went from a team of 2 to having a whole office and manufacturing quite quickly with just one prototype. So when I started, it really wasn't the case that you could do that. I had to grow it organically. I ran it from a garden shed for about 3 years before I got a bank loan, and then I got an outsourcing factory basically to make the products for me, which meant I didn't have to spend all night till 3 in the morning filling up bottles for an order the next day. So the problem really is the pollution from lubricant. So when you mountain bike, as I said, I went through a river. Everything you use on a bike does end up in the environment, unless you're just using a bike indoors or on a ship or something, which is not really many bikes at all. That is, my bike did actually get stuck in the mud like that, so I thought that was worthy of a photo. And of course, when you're cleaning the bike, all the oils will come off, and even the greases as well, and the bearings. If you're washing the bike regularly, these things do end up in the environment. Here it is illustrated. This is a picture of someone using a toxic chain lube, obviously theatrically. You might have seen in the news, does anyone remember last week, there's this sort of scandal about the government voting against building a bigger sewer to stop like the sewers overflowing into rivers. It was on the news last week or perhaps the week before. So they're now building this Thames super sewer, which will divert a lot of London's waste. So now the sort of default is if the sewers are overflowing a bit, they just go into local rivers, which is incredible in this day and age, but that's what happens. And one year it happened 52 times in one year in London, and this extends to Greater London, Bromley, areas like that. So these drains from the road often go straight into rivers. They're flood drains, and obviously the lubricant and car oils and everything can end up in them. This is actually in America, but this sort of emphasises the point. You know, it's actually saying to people, well, I guess they're a step back there sometimes. You know, this is sort of saying don't pour oil literally straight into the drains, because in many places it goes straight through to the rivers. I made a little video about this as well, and this isn't really the future that we want, I think, for our world, is it? We want a green place where the water's clean. I actually swim in rivers sometimes. There's a big wild swimming movement in the UK, and a lot of the rivers don't have sewage going into them, which is great, but we want it to be as clean as possible. And again, emphasising the point there, the oil is everywhere. Now, of course, there's an issue with plastic pollution. We use recycled plastic. So this is kind of like the grand vision for industry. So imagine a world where industry was powered by renewable energy. So at the moment it's using fossil fuel energy, and the carbon footprint of that is high, and that leads to climate change, which leads to, this is probably what you know already, but climate change has an impact on the world's poorest people, from droughts to fires. And so it's a human issue, not just an inherent value of the environment issue. So the green oil bottles are made of recycled plastic. Now, a lot of companies greenwash by saying, oh, the product's recyclable. In fact, there aren't many laws to say you can't put recyclable on nearly anything. I mean, even nuclear waste is recyclable. They can turn it into body armour and things like that, or they can do something with it. But it's not really the point. So ideally, you want things to be recyclable so that they can be used again and again and again after being ground down. So obviously, step one, people recycle used bottles at home. Milk bottles, for example. The plastic goes to a UK recycling facility, and then it gets made into new green oil bottles. And this is important because in the UK, the government has a bit of a lax approach to recycling. People, I mean, ideally every year they should be giving every household a leaflet in different languages as well, in areas where there's high migration, so that people know how to recycle, and that's not done at the moment. If people don't rinse plastic properly and they put it in the recycling bin, that can contaminate a whole load of plastic. So one bale of recyclable plastic that's contaminated, if the whole bale is contaminated, or one bit of contamination can lead to that whole bale of plastic being landfilled or incinerated. When you see these sort of scandalous things on TV of Hugh Fernley-Whittenstall going to Malaysia, and there's like a rainforest and all this plastic has been fly tipped in the rainforest, and you look at the plastics that are there, they're the plastics which aren't really recyclable in the UK. So a Quality Street by Nestle, their plastic tub made of polypropylene. Most councils don't take that for recycling, last time I checked. And it was packaging like that which ends up in Malaysia. So that's people not knowing how to recycle properly in the UK, or not caring, contaminating their recycling bin. That batch of plastic goes to a recycling company, and then because it's contaminated, they send it off to a third party who says, oh yeah, we can deal with that. And of course they just dump it in a rainforest or burn it. So it's important that we all recycle properly. But that is the grand vision. If all plastic and metal was recycled, you would get a closed loop with a little bit of input, but a much lesser input. And actually my company was the first in the UK to use 100% recycled plastic in the packaging. Even instant smoothies weren't doing it then. And when you buy cardboard boxes, so they always contain 75% recycled plastic, or I mean, it might be a lower percentage than that, but there's a law that says all cardboard manufactured in the UK has to contain a recycled plastic content. It's also important for creating a market demand, so that raises the value of recycled content, and that encourages recycling. So either councils can make more money by implementing recycling schemes, or they're incentivized to introduce fines in order to force that through. And the government is now considering doing that with plastic. So every plastic packaging piece made in the UK would then contain a percentage of recycled plastic. It's really good. So it's really good to have been part of the start of that, perhaps. So I was on Dragon's Den. Has anyone seen Dragon's Den? Put your hand up. Excellent, a few of you, okay. So I thought this might be interesting. Some of you here might be here for environmental reasons or purely business reasons, so, or a bit of both, hopefully. So Dragon's Den is an exciting, interesting experience. So I was approached at a show basically, and they said, oh, maybe it's an opportunity for you, and did an audition. So I went to White City, which is one of the BBC studios, did an audition there, and then went up to Salford basically, and it's quite exciting. A lot of work, so they want all your accounts, they want different projected figures, and quite unfairly, of course, if you're in a real investment meeting, you'd have all these notes on paper. And while I was in Dragon's Den, I went to take out some notes because I had 6 or 7 years worth of trading, a couple of different forecasts, and Deborah Meaden, as I took the notebook out, said, excuse me, what's that? And so I was kind of told off by her. She also said, I'm actually really annoyed, based on the numbers I can't invest. If I did invest, I'd have to take more than 50% of the company. And you wouldn't want that, would you? And I said no. I nearly got into an argument with Peter Jones, because he said how many bottles of lubricant are sold in the UK, you know, throughout the whole industry. And I didn't know that answer. It's very difficult to work out. If you look up the competitors, the company's house, often they're selling other products which aren't lubricant bottles. So he had a go at me, and I see now he was almost like cajoling me into an argument, which would have been great TV. You know, as trying to be a good Christian person, I try not to argue so much. And but obviously on TV, if you want to be successful on Dragon's Den, you probably should have an argument, and maybe you should cry or get angry. Those would be my 3 tips if you want to get coverage on there. So I got the phone call a little while later saying, yeah, we've cut you down to one of the 30-second ones. And then when I actually did watch the programme, on my birthday actually, with my parents and girlfriend at the time, they had cut me down to 3 to 5 seconds. So I was nodding, there was no product feature, and of course I didn't get investment either. So that was the story, but it was an interesting experience, and it was a gamble to go on there, and it was worthwhile based on the knowledge that I had at the time. It was the right decision. If you don't get investment, you get good publicity. I did get neither, but it was an experience anyway. So some of the products, this is the green or wet chain lube. So this is the product, you put it on the bike chain to stop the chain from rusting, essentially. The bottle's made of recycled plastic. And there's a little video which kind of emphasizes the point about the problem of plastics, which I want to show you.
Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. Every year, some 8 million tons of it ends up in the ocean.
We have some plastic that this poor chick has had to bring up. Plastic bag.
Lucy collects and records what plastic she finds around the nests.
So there you have it. Of course, product performance is also important when you're making green products. So a lot of people, they think about price firstly. So if you can price eco-friendly products similarly to non-eco-friendly products, that is great. A lot of people, myself included, I mean, if organic and eco-friendly products are inherently good, then you shouldn't price them just so that a minority of people can buy them. That's kind of defeats the point in my mind. If it's just for this like richest 10%, then yeah, ideally you want everyone to be able to afford it. So my products are priced similarly to non-green products. Yeah, I was lucky enough to, well, I mean, the products, they do work. We've had product performance awards. So that was what mountain bike, they gave the Green Oil Wet Chain Lube an award when it was first released around that time. And yeah, road CC as well. So that's important. Bike shops often say, you know, is it biodegradable or not? There is a loophole in the law. So a lubricant actually only has to be 60% biodegradable for it to say biodegradable on the bottle. And this is based on like 28 days. The lubricant has to be biodegradable by 60%. The assumption is after 40 days or more, it will then be 100% biodegradable, but then, you know, who has the time to test it for that long? These are rules created by the OECD, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, a sort of global body, and it's a ridiculous rule because some of my competitors have used basically petrochemical oils which aren't biodegradable, and this one contains PTFE. Has anyone heard of PTFE before? It's polytetrafluoroethylene. I know it's not a chemistry lecture, but it is a chemical which doesn't biodegrade, and it's part of a group of chemicals which are not eco-friendly and don't biodegrade. And they actually create a carcinogen in production. So there's an output, the US Environmental Protection Agency has said the output from production of this chemical is carcinogenic. There's a film called Dark Waters, which came out just before COVID. And it's about the DuPont factory in America, and it shows how many people got cancer and his children had birth defects as a result of PTFE production. So this company was actually putting PTFE in a lubricant and then claiming it's biodegradable, which is horrific. And it was bad for my company as well, because people would say, oh, we're stocking this brand and it's eco-friendly. And I could say, well, categorically it's not. And they could say, well, it says biodegradable on the bottle. And then trading standards can't do anything about that because they're technically within the rules, because it is 60% biodegradable. So I made a couple of videos sort of emphasizing this point, which is quite scary when you're sort of criticizing someone's big company. I did think, am I going to get a legal letter in the post? But everything in it was true, so that was fine. So some of the evolution of the packaging. If you watch Dragon's Den or something now, if you speak to people like yourselves, maybe starting companies or thinking about starting a company, things are often quite advanced quite early on. So when I was at school, we weren't really taught how to use Photoshop. You know, it's a £600 program, probably the educational license is still quite a lot. And yes, we weren't taught a lot of these things, how to make product packaging. And you know, hopefully now you've got friends also doing similar degrees or marketing degrees and can use Photoshop, so you can collaborate with people in your year. So hence the 2007 bottle, I'm feeling old now, that was designed, it was basically a photograph, as you can see, and designed in Microsoft Word. And that was actually a cog from my bike, and I drew a picture of a tree and then put the cog on top and then took a photograph. And that was the original packaging, and it was actually still in Microsoft Word. I had a few magazine reviews where I was still printing out labels in Microsoft Word on a home printer and then cutting out the labels with a pair of scissors and sort of gluing them on instead of taping them on. And so this 2012 branding, what do you think about that? A bit more advanced, yeah. So it was good. Something about when you've heard of this like sort of white coat syndrome, which is, you know, if a doctor tells you to do something, you know, you just kind of go along with it. You're like, oh, here's the authority figure, he's wearing a white coat. And it was kind of the same with graphic designers, actually. I wasn't a graphic designer. I feel I am more of a graphic designer now, but they came up with this idea. And I thought, okay, they know what they're doing. And the problem was all the other products also said green oil at the top. So the green oil is the brand, but I had like a bike cleaner, a degreaser, And they all said green oil in huge letters at the top. So people thought the bike cleaner was just a bigger bottle of lubricant, or the degreaser was another lubricant. And it took me a long time to realise that that was what was going on. So they were a good graphic design company, and the products did look good. The other thing as well, it kind of looked almost like too eco-friendly. So it seems like people want products that are not only eco-friendly but high-tech, and it is a high-tech product. But the branding didn't really reflect that with the sort of cartoony figure and the way that branding was laid out. So it's advanced to this. There's actually a new bottle out now, which is even more advanced than that and looks more techy and more appealing to the eye. So yeah, you're gonna pass it around if you wanna have a look. Now this is the brush. So one of the issues with plastic pollution is that, so arguably a lot of plastic, ideally if everyone recycled and everyone used the waste stream properly, there wouldn't be a problem with plastic pollution. In some countries, they almost just fly tip stuff straight into the sea, just thinking, well, the sea's quite deep and they don't have landfill sites and they don't have incinerators or anything, or recycling plants. So that's the cause of a lot of plastic pollution. I mean, ideally, if no one littered, if no one dropped cigarette butts, it'd be much easier to have a closed loop. And it'd be better if it went to landfill than obviously being litter and ending up in rivers. Some things though, you get like sacrificial plastics. So on a brush, if the bristles are made of plastic, every time you're scrubbing it, you're getting tiny bits of plastic going into the environment. And that's something that can't be helped if it is a plastic product. Unless it was some kind of bulletproof plastic that never really wore out, but I'm not sure that's possible. So I created a brush. It's got plant-based bristles, so of course the more you use it, or every time you use it, if anything does come off, if it does wear out, or if bristles do come out, they're biodegradable. They're made out of a plant called Gamati arenga, and they soften when wet. And curiously, when I was developing the brush, different companies offering bristles and part of the development, they said, okay, what you want to do is you want to have one plant-based one plastic one, and one just to kind of make it a bit stiffer. And then it'll wear out nice and quickly, then you'll sell a new brush every sort of 6 months to a year. And I was like, no, I don't want that. I want it to last as long as possible. So this is designed to last over 10 years. And yeah, it's a shame, there are product developers, and that's probably part of their training, how to build in built-in obsolescence so it does wear out and people buy a new one. I, hopefully not naively, think I'd rather sell a product which does last as long as possible so that people will just buy it, and then if I don't sell any, then that's fine. I'd love for every cyclist to have one and not need to buy a second one. But hey, 10 years, I guess 10 years will pass eventually. Has anyone heard of the FSC logo, Forestry Stewardship Council logo? Interesting, okay. So it's this little logo here, that one. So it's a picture of a tree with FSC written underneath it. It's short for Forest Stewardship Council, and they guarantee the sustainability of the wood. So of course, if you have a forest and you chop it down and then just use the wood and then you turn the forest into farmland, that's not good. In some countries, they just burn down the rainforest, turn it into farmland, that's not good. Of course, often they chop down the trees and then just leave the land. Then you get soil erosion. The tree roots and the trees stop the soil washing away. It's kind of a web of roots and everything. So if you get rid of that, soon the soil degrades and then you're left with kind of a scrubland or even a desert. And it's terrible. So if it's FSC certified wood, it's like a guarantee that that isn't happening. And I'd say morally, you shouldn't really buy wood products that are new, that don't have the FSC badge. You get shops like Oak Furniture Land, they're boasting about, oh yeah, real hardwood furniture. And where's that coming from? Last time I checked, none of that was FSC certified. They're actively boasting about trashing the environment that we share. And it's a human rights issue as well. You have indigenous people living in forests and their human rights aren't respected. They're just often shot or kicked off their land. And even if they're just sort of subtly pushed off the land as the trees are being chopped down, then they're in a smaller and smaller area and they need to forage for food and live off the land. So it's a terrible thing. And it's a funny thing, isn't it? If you saw someone hurt or being mugged or, being made homeless by a bulldozer bulldozing their house, in England, you'd be like, well, that's terrible. We've got to stand up for that. But of course, a shop selling a product which is made of wood, which is causing deforestation, it's kind of like a long chain, and we're kind of told not to think about things too much, but we should be thinking about things. We should try and be ethical consumers. So this is a degreasing jelly. So you put this on the chain and it cleans the chain without having to take the chain off the bike. So again, the ingredients are plant-based and sustainably sourced. So it uses a detergent made from coconut oil and some citrus extracts and some other things. So it's sustainably sourced. It's like a jelly. So I was actually cleaning my bike and I felt it was quite frustrating to take the chain off and clean it. So I created a product which is like stuck to the chain. So you can clean the chain without taking off the bike. And this is a grease as well. So again, a lot of people are making greases which are petroleum based and contain PTFE. And of course, a lot of this stuff is going to go on your hands if you're a bike mechanic. I've met people, or people have called up who use my products who say, I couldn't do my job before I was using your products. Or people can get eczema from car mechanics, sometimes get things like this, eczema. And other petrochemical build-ups from the product seeping in through their skin, and basically other health issues from that. So again, like a lot of eco-friendly brands, it's better for human health as well, the products that we're making, which is great. Now this is actually an upcycled product. It's made from upcycled clothing. Has anyone ever donated clothing to a charity shop before? Put your hand up. Get a few of you, yeah. So that's great. It reduces the burden on, well, and there's a whole thing with sweatshops, right? And there's a whole thing of people being kicked off their land or factories poisoning the land, and then due to that they have to work in a factory making clothing. Although, you know, it can provide good employment and good pay if it's done properly. So there's a problem with fast fashion in the UK. If you donate clothing to a charity shop and it's too damaged to be sold, basically we're one of the companies that gets that and we turn it into bike cleaning cloths. So that stops this clothing going to landfill. Did anyone know if you send stuff to landfill and it rots, do you know that's an impact, a climate change impact, not just a space issue? So if you send food to landfill instead of composting it, if you send clothing to landfill, you know, it's cotton and it rots, then it can create methane, which is a climate changing gas, because it's called anaerobic digestion or decomposition. So in a landfill site, all the stuff goes in and then they kind of cover it, I'm not sure what, probably a sheet of plastic and then soil on top. And then the gases that it creates, one of them is methane, which is also the cow fart gas, which is a climate changing gas, and it's more potent than CO2 because it goes into the atmosphere and breaks down into CO2 essentially. So we're in a small way helping stop that by creating a second use for clothing which is too damaged to sell on by charity shops. Now, Eco Spray Lube. So I was unsuccessful on Dragon's Den, as you saw. So I thought I'd have a second try on Kickstarter. Has anyone either given money to something on Kickstarter before? Put your hand up. Okay, 2 people, great. Has anyone ever put a product on Kickstarter before? You have? Excellent, okay. We'll chat more about that later. Congratulations, that's good. Would anyone like to see the video that I made for Kickstarter? Yeah? And I'll let you guess about if I was successful or not. Hi there, I'm Simon Nash from Green Oil, and I've been creating some of the world's greenest bicycle maintenance fluids for a number of years now. Unfortunately, in workshops, in bike workshops around the world, people are still using PTFE and petrochemical spray lubes. And it goes into the air, and all of these products say on the packaging, do not breathe in the fumes, only use in a well-ventilated area or outdoors. But unfortunately, in especially cold countries like the UK, you can't really well-ventilate a workshop easily. And people are breathing in this stuff, PTFE is accumulating in body tissue and the environment. So, I've created a solution. This is Green Oil Eco Spray Lube. It works, it displaces water, it lubricates and it protects. Join our Kickstarter today. It's better for the environment, better for your health, and better for mechanics skiing all around the world. Join us today. Join our Kickstarter today. There you go. So would anyone like to guess if it was successful or not? Yeah, who thinks it was successful? Put your hand up. Who thinks it wasn't? It was successful, thanks for your confidence. Yeah, so did get the finance for that, which is good. So as you might know on Kickstarter, oh, thank you. Yeah, as you might know on Kickstarter, so you basically, you give money in exchange for the product, maybe a discount. So I think there was sort of like 5 different levels. So there was one like, you can just donate money if you're so generous. The other was to get the product for like £1 cheaper than it would be in the shops. And then you get the money in advance through Kickstarter if you reach the goal, the financial goal. As in, if I reach that goal, then everyone has their money taken, and then a month later they get the product, basically, which is a great way of starting a business. And obviously, I'd already started the business, but it was good to finance the production of this product. So then we have a dry chain wax. This is, again, it's a biodegradable lubricant. It's like a wax-based formula, so it dries off and leaves a wax film on the train. And it's better for like dry conditions instead of wet weather conditions, basically. And again, the bottle's made of recycled plastic and there's no PTFE in it. And again, a bike cleaner. And again, these awards for performance are good. So how you get awards? Have you all written a press release before? It's worthwhile to know how to do that. Probably people at the university can help you with that. So when you send a product to like a magazine, they like a press release, and there's a certain format that it's done. So it's worthwhile calling up the magazine or website and saying, hey, would you like to review my product? And it's a gamble because they might not like the product and give you a terrible review. So it is a gamble, but like everything in life, what's the worst thing that can happen? If a product sucks and gets a bad review, then actually it's not you, it's just the product. And so that's what I did. So I created a press release every time a new product came out, would post it to the magazine, give them a phone call before. And yeah, most of the time they like the product. So then it's quite cool to see your product in print in a magazine and online as well. Again, this is like an eco-friendly degreaser. So it's made from plant-based alcohol and orange peel extracts. And the bottle isn't made of recycled aluminium, but it is recyclable. But it's one of those things, when you're running a smallish company, sometimes you have to, I'd have to order like 200,000 bottles to make them out of recycled aluminium, and I can't afford to do that at the moment. So sometimes you do have to make compromises. And this is like a gift set that we do. Now, I mentioned polypropylene not being recyclable. And again, you sometimes have to make compromises, unfortunately. So that tub is not recyclable in the UK. It's made of polypropylene. I think some councils might be able to take it. So the solution was to, well, you all heard of reuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, kind of the government phrase. Well, reuse is a great thing. So, and in fact, the best thing is better than recycling because it doesn't use energy. So we included a pack of seeds in the tub. So you can make some holes in the base of the tub, put in soil, and then grow your own salad or herbs. So that was a way that we got around the ungreen thing of it not being recyclable by giving it a second use. Who'd like some seeds, by the way? Any green-fingered people? Yeah? Is that, you put your hand up first? Yeah, there you go. Well done. And again, with business, you know, it's good to don't be scared to put your hand up and make the first move, because yeah, that's what it's all about. There's a Kickstarter thing again. Some pics of me cycling. Now, trade shows. Has anyone done a trade show before? So these are a really good way to get products out there. You have, okay, good, yeah. So it can be, it's quite good for your confidence as well, because you're literally just talking to people constantly. And so imagine like standing out there and just approaching people again and again. I mean, it'd be quite a weird thing to do, wouldn't it? But at a trade show, you kind of have to do that. And actually people are interested in bike products. These are largely bicycle trade shows. And yeah, it's a good way to show people the products directly. And you do get to travel for work quite a lot. That one actually in the bottom right was a Japanese magazine. There's a Japanese journalist who wrote for the magazine in the UK. So I didn't actually go to Japan. It's quite funny seeing, it reminded me of the Simpsons episode when he has the cereal box and it looks like him and it's got this Japanese writing on it. It reminded me of that because I'm not sure what I'm saying in that, but it's something in Japanese. And yeah, and with trade shows, a good tip is, I mean, the worst kind of trade show is often ones with like more money spent on it. Someone's purchased, like they've rented like a nice white table and like a roller banner and then like a pack of sweets in a bowl, and then almost like standing at the trade show like on guard, and it's just terrible because you almost feel like, I can't go there because he's going to talk to me, and I can't go and just pick up a leaflet. So I find with trade shows, well, firstly, don't just pounce on everyone, and don't be kind of guarding on the edge of the stands. Be just kind of in the stand somewhere and look approachable, but don't be like just jumping on people. A game is always quite useful. It can be quite, like if you're selling like lubricants and cleaning products without knowing much about the brand, it can be a boring thing to just like jump in to talk to someone about. So this game we created, Splat the PTFE Rat. So has anyone seen this at like a church fair or a school fete or something as a kid? Splat the Rat, you not played Splat? A couple of people played Splat the Rat. Okay, so the idea is, it's not very like animal rights friendly, is it? But the game is to, you have like a drain pipe. Someone puts the rat in, which is like a sock with some weights in it. And they put it in at the top and it's like a dark pole, so you can't see where the rat is. You're supposed to time it and guess and then splat the rat as it comes out of the pole before it goes into the barrel. And that was the game. But the idea was you're stopping the PTFE rat before it gets into the watercourse by whacking it with the bat. So yeah, fun things like that are good to get people to the stand, which I've found effective. And that pretty much concludes the talk. So I want you to ask yourselves, like, what one thing can you think about that could be greener? So there are things in your life you're probably using which are probably like not that eco-friendly, but you really need them. Like, I quite like, there's a dental floss thing called a flossette. It's like that, and there's no eco-friendly version of it. So there's sort of 3 ways of dealing with that. So actually wrote them down here. So obviously you can eliminate the thing, like landmines, for example. I can't really imagine like an eco-friendly ethical landmine. It's a bomb which just like blows your legs up and then children play with them after the war's finished, and really they shouldn't really exist. So the solution for that is like elimination, clearly. The second way is creating like an eco-friendly version of the product. So if it was like a dental floss stick, you'd use something that's biodegradable or genuinely recyclable. And the third option is just an alternative. So let me think. Well, driving a car, for example, actually there was an alternative which is driving a bicycle instead. So that's a viable green alternative. So I'll leave that thought with you. We can ask questions, and that concludes the talk. Thank you very much.